Hello, and thank you for watching this training video. I'm Lindsay Marsh from the National Community Action Partnership, and my job is to help the Community Action Network encourage people to participate in the 2020 census. Over the next 15 or so minutes, I'm going to talk about what the census is, why it's important to community action, and how you can help. Let's just dive right in. Let's talk about what the actual census is. This is the process created by our founding fathers to use population to allocate political power instead of wealth or land, as outlined in Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution. In that process, we are supposed to count every living person in the United States where they live, so we can use the population numbers to allocate resources and political power. Then what happens with all the information collected by the census? Census data is used throughout our daily lives and in some really surprising ways. First of all, it's used for apportionment among states. After the census, the total population is divided by 435 to determine how many people should be in a congressional seat. Then each state is allotted congressional representatives based on their population. After that, redistricting begins. This is where state, local, and federal district lines are redrawn to account for the population shifts from the last decade. For example, Pennsylvania had 19 congressional districts based on the 2000 census. But in 2010, they lost a seat. Their population shifted compared with the rest of the country, and they had to redraw their congressional maps to make those 18 equal-sized districts from the 19 that they had before. This process of redistricting happens on the federal level, but also for state, house, and senate districts, and even schools and voting districts. The redistribution of our population requires these boundary changes to ensure fair representation across the country. It also makes sure that one school isn't overflowing while a neighboring school is half empty. This process also impacts presidential elections, since each state has one electoral vote for each senator and one for each congressional seat in the Electoral College. All of this means that having an accurate count really impacts the political representation of our communities. The census also plays a role in how much money each state receives for a lot of federal programs, since many of them use census population numbers in their funding formulas. On average, the federal government allocates about $2,000 per person per year, or over the course of 10 years, $20,000 towards those federal programs. Census data is also used for government planning, where to put a new park, build a new fire station, how to zone property, or even when to build a new school. Businesses and organizations also use census data to inform their operations. Community Action uses these numbers to do our community needs assessments every 3 years. Finally, census data is used to enforce voting rights and civil rights legislation to make sure that federal funding for those programs is allocated where they need to be, and to help evaluate federal programs and policies to ensure they are fairly applied and serve all people in our country. We've been doing the decennial census every 10 years since 1790, and it is a crucial part of how our democracy works. The bottom line, the census is how we can ensure that our communities receive the political representation and federal funding they deserve, and have the most accurate count possible is crucial. I mentioned that the census is a huge part of federal funding. It helps determine how $77 billion are allocated across the states. Here are some of the programs that are affected by census numbers that many of our agencies offer. CSBG, we all receive CSBG funding, LIHEAP or HEAP programs, Head Start, Section 8 housing programs, healthcare centers, Title III aging programs. It really permeates every facet of what we do at Community Action. Now, what is actually on the census form? This year, there will only be the so-called short form for the decennial census. 2000 was the last year that the Census Bureau did both the long form and the short form questionnaire. This is because the American Community Survey started in 2005 as a better way to collect information on a more regular basis. This does cause some confusion. There is only the short form this year. and there are only 10 questions on this year's form. You will be asked age in years, month, day, as well as year of birth for each household member. Hispanic origin, yes or no, Hispanic, and if yes, which country? Race. This year is a little bit different than the 2010 census. There will be several different larger categories of race, plus an other category. You can fill in what best approximates your race. If you're biracial or triracial, you can fill in that form in the other category. It'll ask relationship. How is person one related to all the other people on their form? It'll ask gender, male or female. It asks a few questions about the house in general. Is it a house, an apartment, a mobile home? Is it owned? Is it rented? And then the form will ask a few operational questions. How many people lived here on April 1st, 2020? Were there additional people staying here on April 1st? Those are questions that are designed to help catch undercounts. Sometimes people don't realize that people staying in their house should be counted on their census form. A good example would be a friend who's couch surfing, doesn't have anywhere else to live, but is staying with you on April 1st. They should be counted on your census form. Or a complex living arrangement, like a grandmother taking care of a grandchild. That grandmother might think that the grandchild will be counted by their parent, but if the child is living with the grandmother on April 1st, they should be counted on the census form. And finally, the census will ask the telephone number and the name of the person filling out the form. This is so if they have any follow-up questions, they know who to reach out to and how to contact them. So how does this all work? The census starts in January each year in remote Alaskan villages, when the paths are frozen over and the towns are accessible, and when residents are wintering in their villages before they scatter for the hunting season. For the rest of the United States, the census begins on March 12th, when invitations to participate online or over the phone start hitting mailboxes. The 2020 census is the first time the decennial census will be conducted largely online, and the first time people can respond over the phone. This is both an opportunity and a challenge. Moving the survey online makes real-time census response tracking possible, and it makes forms less likely to be lost in a stack of papers. The invitation that will be received that first week will contain an online code that respondents are prompted for when they go online, but it is not required. You can simply put in your home address, and that will connect you to the right form. There are also guides online that have been translated into 59 different languages to make it easier for people who aren't fluent in English. The downside to online forms is that not everyone has internet access. Some people also prefer paper forms. Before this year, the phone lines were simply question hotlines to call for answers on how to fill out the form. This year, phone lines are available in 13 different languages, and you are also able to fill out the survey over the phone. This will be a very crucial tool in specifically rural areas or wherever internet access is spotty. So I've mentioned that March 12th timeline. Initial invitations hit mailboxes across the country between March 12th and March 20th. Reminder postcards are sent to folks in waves between March 16th and April 3rd. Starting April 8th through April 16th, households that have not yet responded will be sent a paper form. For the most part, this is the only time paper forms will be sent. There are some exceptions depending on the locale. Some places will receive paper forms up front, but for the most part, this is the schedule. Between April 20th and April 27th, final reminder postcards will be sent, telling people that they have one more chance to self-respond. For those households who have not responded as of April 27th, Census Bureau employees will begin to knock on doors starting on May 4th, and they will continue that through July to count people. So in summary, the census can be filled out anytime between March 12th, that's when the online forms start to go out for the phone lines, and the online response form is live. Whenever you fill out the census, though, you do it based on who lived in your household on April 1st, 2020. April 1st is called Census Day, and it is used to take a snapshot of America. It is very important to fill out the census based on who lives in each household on April 1st to prevent people from being missed in the census. Now that I've given everyone an overview of why the census is so important and so crucial to a surprising number of things in America, and the basics of what the process is to participate in the census, I'm going to talk about why I'm telling you all of this. What does community action have to do with this? We've actually been involved in encouraging our customers to participate in the census since 1970, which was the first census to happen after our inception in 1964. And besides one of the best numbers for our CNAs, community action is uniquely positioned to help some of the most undercounted communities participate in the census. We are trusted messengers to some of the people who are least likely to participate in the census. If we talk to our customers about the census and encourage them to fill out the forms completely, it means greater political representation and crucial federal funding to our community. The Census Bureau has identified groups of people who are most often missed in the decennial census. They call them hard to count. I prefer to call them the undercounted communities, but it includes lots of people that we're very familiar with. People with low income, young children. Children 0 to 4 are the most commonly undercounted communities across the country. Children 5 to 9 is the second most commonly undercounted group across the country. People of color, people who move a lot, Native Americans. The hard to count populations as identified by the Census Bureau is a veritable who's who of community action. And we have the power to reach them, talk to them about the census, and encourage them to be counted. Over the last few slides, I've outlined the problem we're facing. So let's talk about what's being done. The National Community Action Partnership has partnered with the Census Bureau in their efforts to count everyone. We are encouraging all of our agencies to reach out to their census regional office to be connected with a partnership specialist in their area who can help with census outreach in your community. The Census Bureau also has a network of complete count committees, also known as CCCs, across the country. They remind me a little of tripartite boards. Local complete count committees are made up of elected officials, local businesses, nonprofits, local school systems, religious institutions, the players of a community, all coming together to make sure that everyone in their community is counted. CCCs near each agency can be found on the Census website that's hyperlinked in this slide. This is one of the best ways to coordinate efforts to ensure everyone hears the message that the census is safe, easy, and important. Many states also have a statewide complete count committee that's coordinating efforts on a statewide level. We have also co-opted this idea and created a community action complete count committee with the goal of one member or more, but at least one member from each agency in our network to be plugged in and engaged on census work and informed about what's happening and how they can help. The National Partnership is also a part of a nonprofit coalition on the census called Census Counts 2020. Member groups that represent every person in America are involved, and we are working together to get the message out about the census. Together, we have pooled resources and divided up the work to make the lift lighter for each of us to mobilize our networks. www.censuscounts.org/resources is a great place to look for materials, handouts, flyers, toolkits, and the like. The National Partnership Census team can also help find something that's needed, like in-language translations that aren't being addressed by the census. We do that in part by talking to these community members. The National Community Action Partnership has been tasked with raising awareness with and engaging our agencies to talk to customers about the census. To that end, we've produced a lot of materials, like this presentation, to help frontline staff members talk to people about the process. Our job as a team is to make this work easy and seamless for community action. We know that everyone is already so overloaded, so our goal is to make it easy to give a one-page fact sheet to a customer and ask them to check their mailbox. or to have answers to frequently asked questions at the ready, and to be a resource for all of our agencies. All of our materials can be found on our website, www.communityactionpartnership.com/census-2020. If there's something that would be helpful that we haven't thought of yet, please ask. If we can do it for you, we will. To help train everyone on the census, we have created an online course to get census certified. Moodle is the online learning platform that the partnership uses for other learning groups as well. It's self-paced. You can start and stop as you need, but it'll take less than 2 hours to complete and provides comprehensive background information on the census, the process, and how to talk to people about participation. So with all of this, how can you help? As I mentioned, the goal has been to make this crucial work easy for all of our agencies to implement. Our ask is that your agency engage and talk to customers about the census. For example, when talking to a customer about the form they came in to talk about that day, once you've finished that business, ask if you can talk about one more thing. If you're a Head Start teacher or have a Head Start program, ask those teachers to have kids do a coloring page that's a fact sheet on one side for parents and guardians and the coloring sheet on the other, and have those kids take that home. On April 1st, all staff members can wear a red shirt and one of our buttons that says, "Ask me about the census," to start a conversation. You can use the materials we've created to make it easy to give people information. There are also more in-depth webinars available on our website. It is important to use the right messaging. We have fact sheets that have been created for target audiences based on market research to help you address different groups, like kids or people of color. Overall, the message that resonates across all groups is that filling out the census helps their community. It is always helpful to reiterate that the census is also safe and easy. A lot of people are afraid that filling out the census might get them into trouble. We have short videos on our website that talk about why it's safe, as well as the one-pager. The Census Bureau has 3 main ways to ensure that the census is safe. First, by law, they are prohibited from sharing any individual's personal information with any other agency. They can receive information from other agencies, but they are not allowed to give any information back. They are only allowed to disseminate information in aggregate. Second, all Census Bureau employees pledge an oath to uphold those laws. If they violate a person's privacy, they can be fined up to $250,000 and/or jailed for up to 5 years. It's something called Title 13 and is a very powerful deterrent. And third, all of the forms that we fill out for the 2020 census will be kept confidential for 72 years. 2092 is when they will be released. By that point, nothing on any of those forms can really hurt anybody filling it out today. Here's a quick recap of action items that you and your agency can do to help our efforts. You've already taken the first step by watching this presentation. The next step is to make sure that you can talk to people about the census and guide them to fill it out. You can also find your local CCC and make sure that someone from your agency has been nominated to the Community Action Complete Count Committee. I've mentioned a few places to look for more information and materials, so here are some links to help. The first 2 are resources from the Community Action Partnership, and the third link is to help find our partner toolkits at thecensuscounts.org. And last but not least, this is how you can reach the partnership census team. I'm Lindsay Marsh, the project director, and I welcome questions, requests, or comments. Thank you for watching, and thank you for the work you do.